Okay, so welcome to our session on ISO 2022 lessons learned and best practices. This session will be from the financial services perspective, as opposed to some sessions earlier today from the corporate perspective. My name is Mach Flinn. I'm a solutions consulting manager for OpenText, a Canadian company. Among other things, we provide solutions to our banking partners and our corporate partners for connecting up and exchanging ISO messages and translating messages back and forth between whatever the original format is in the ISO that the consumer is looking for. And with me today, I have Ashish Chaughule from Citibank, who's been practicing ISO for a long time, and Clint Withworth from BMO, who's kind of like just beginning to practice ISO. And so we're going to get a kind of a diverse opinion here and two different perspectives on what drives the market, why did you adopt, and so on and so forth. I have a series of questions I'll be asking my co-panelists. We'll get answers. We'll leave this fairly conversational and informal. We'll gladly take questions from the audience at any time. And during the course of the conversation, I'll have questions that I'll be asking you. So please find your prompters and respond to the polling questions at the appropriate time. So let's get going. So Ashish, let's start with you. How long has Citi been playing with ISO 2022?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having us. 2008, to be precise. I know the PAN 001 message came around in 2004, 2005. But Citibank started using ISO XML version 2 in 2008, and we deployed our first client in 2009.
Okay. How about BMO?
As you mentioned, we are just beginning our journey on the ISO path. So we are in a pilot mode. So Bank of Montreal will be initiating accepting ISO messages from its customers. We have 3 that we've put into our pilot program. One of them was supposed to have been live in October, actually, but they've had some internal issues with their system. So we're ready for them to send a payment. They started as a very simple use case. They really were just looking at ISO as an alternative to doing their wire initiations. And then the other customers we brought on board have done a more full-blown ISO approach. So both payment initiation with payment messages and also the cash management reporting for CAMT messages. And we'll be going live with those in June. So actually this week, on Monday, our first live payments for that customer will be going through.
So your program is primarily customer facing?
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. Ashish?
Yeah.
How long? How big? Customer facing, market facing, both?
It's mostly customer facing, although I would like to say SEPA was the catalyst for our program to be launched. To give you numbers, our average monthly volume is about 9 million transactions. Maybe 6 million of those are V3 and about 3 million for V2 type. North America, about 3.2 million. US, about 3 million. Canada, 200,000. And of course, after today's conference, I'm sure most of the banks and corporates are going to go back and start using ISO XML standards as well. But yeah, I mean, Europe about 3.6 million. So North America has about 1/3 of our transactions, US being a dominant force, but Canada is catching up. And of course, with your 3 pilot clients, I think we will certainly get there. There was an interesting article I came across, which was published by Federal Reserve. So they categorize, different countries and different regions and the overall ISO XML adoption. So they put Europe in the mature adoption level. They put India, South Africa, Japan, Singapore, and Switzerland in the growing adopters category or section. And they put Australia, Canada, and New Zealand in interested adopters. So I found that classification very interesting. And that kind of summarizes, which markets are mature, where the clients are making more payments to what environments. Gives you that overall story.
Yeah. To add to that, I think just with our initial customer base that we've gone with, we do see definitely some domestic, probably about 2 years ago, in 2014 roughly, when CPA was starting a lot of the talk about ISO. When we went out and talked to the customers, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in ISO. that very quickly has changed. So we have our 3 pilot customers, and then we actually do have several customers lined up actually waiting. We've told them when we launch the service fully out of the pilot mode that we'll be implementing them. But the customers that we have seen, we've seen a mix of domestic Canadian customer base, and then also the international customer base. So we definitely see interest from customers that are dealing outside of Canada, and particularly in Europe, that there's a very strong interest in using the ISO format so that they can simplify their banking relationships. They just want to move to ISO as their one format and not have to deal with local clearing and exchange formats. So we see that interest.
So it sounds like on your end, then it was like customer demand was the real driver to ISO adoption at BMO, right?
Yeah, we were kind of looking and participating with the CPA on the ISO journey, and as we've explored, well, how is Canada going to transform? Customers went from not really interested to, this is something we want to do. So we had a few customers that asked, and it was time to move forward and start a solution. So that's the approach we've taken, is to give them an option to start using ISO, even though it isn't really mature in Canada, meaning although customers can use ISO, we as a bank can't use it for interbank clearing and exchange. So we've been very transparent with our customer base on this, that we're giving and offering ISO, but we haven't had the maturity in North America for it, and in Canada in particular. So they won't see the real benefit of it until the CPA and the banks are all on board and actually using ISO as interbank exchange file format.
Okay. What about on the Citi side? You mentioned SEPA was, the need to clear in SEPA, the driving factor. Was it customer demand? Was it customers demanding that you clear in SEPA? Or?
Well, I mean, when SEPA initiative was launched, it was more for the European Union and how the clearing should be done with a standard format. So when we talk about ISO message, it's all about standardization. What clarity that message has, certain advantages, regulatory details available for our clients as well. But customer demand, and that's something we will talk about, how we build the business case. But it was more a client came to us and they wanted to partner with us. I mean, as of today, apart from the volume, we have presence in 130 markets all over the world, and 70% of our traffic flows through ISO XML formats. So that speaks for itself. I mean, harmonization, standardization, these are the key components. What banks are always looking for, at the same time, our corporates are looking for as well. As far as market infrastructures, SEPA being, the largest one or the biggest one, I'm sure we will come across many more. But I want to give you the background what we do as a global product manager. So Citibank, on the cash management side, we have our online channels and offline channels. The offline channel is called as Citi Connect, where it's a platform to send your transaction payments via the ERP systems or treasury management systems. That's where either they can send the payment messages or they can send the payment instructions through MT101. So that's pretty much is our channels and enterprise services shop, where we provide that bandwidth, that pipeline, so that clients can send all of their payments through the secure channel. And that's where even we partner with OpenText, where the payments are channelized using the security protocol or transportation protocol, so that from corporates, when the message comes to the bank, it's already in that level.
Thanks. So let's ask the audience, what's your experience with using with ISO in general? I mean, do we have hard practitioners in here, neophytes, learners? I know I've seen a couple of practitioners in the audience. So give us your responses. Here we go. So we're about split between those that are exploring ISO and those that are experienced practitioners. We're split 3 ways. Nobody's too concerned about their business. Oh, the race is on. Well, that's an interesting result. Are we about there? Okay, so that's closer to what I would have expected of a Canadian audience. Everybody's starting to explore the notion of using ISO either internally within their infrastructure, in their customer-facing programs, if you're a corporate practitioner, in your bank-facing programs. That all makes sense. But nobody seems to be working on a business case. That could very well be. Hopefully everybody's already got one, including those that are exploring. Let's talk about building a business case. Clint, on your side, right? What was the driving things? What were you looking for as benefits for the bank out of your business case?
Overall, our business case for the ISO program will be simplification of our payments processing. So multiple environments, multiple systems. I'll throw out the term that's been used as a dirty word this conference of legacy systems. It is really an interesting time in Canada in the banking industry, in the payment industry. Of things are changing, and then technology needs to catch, or technology is there. It's more like we have to catch up. So the business case is to simplify our environment as much as possible, reduce our operational costs, and at the same time make payments simpler for our customers. One of the things I've talked about to our customers about ISO is the best way for us to implement ISO for them not even to think that they have to use ISO. And what I mean in particular, I know Ashish can probably comment on this as well. Right now, the ISO demographic really are large corporates. It's an XML file, it's complicated, it's hard to get into. In Canada, if we want an ISO to be successful in AFT, that's not the market segment. It has to go downstream, it has to be small business, it has to be simple. I'm not expecting small businesses to become XML compliant and experts. I, as a bank, have to give them a simple solution that allows them to reap the benefits of ISO. So the banks are going, and Payments Canada, sorry, I've said CPA 3 times, I apologize. We need to make that the end state. So adopting ISO as an interbank exchange file format, great, let's do it, absolutely. It doesn't mean my customers have to use ISO or know that they're using ISO. They will be using ISO because we'll be exchanging it. We as a value proposition have to allow them to reap the benefits of that. And as well, it's not, the business case sometimes has been focused, and I admit I started off on this path of focusing on payment initiation. And really with ISO, the experience and lessons I've learned very, very much about the topic of this is that's probably the wrong thing to do. The benefits of ISO are really the data. We've talked about what do we need to do to make payments better. Payments are payments. We can do payments. We're not debating that. It's how do we make payments better and easier and more efficient for customers. The payment data that ISO will leverage is what's going to allow them to do that. So the CAMT messages, nobody talks about them very much, but talking to the customers when they've implemented the service, they've been critical. It doesn't matter if they can send me a pain 001 at payment initiation. If I can't give them their information back in the CAMT messages in ISO that they can benefit from, they didn't gain anything. They haven't improved their internal processes. They haven't been able to have any efficiencies with their account AR processing. So you can't look at ISO just as a payment initiation service. We really have to look at ISO as a holistic approach. It's payment messages, but yeah, the CAMT messages, the cash management messages are critical and very important for the businesses to really reap benefits out of it.
Good insight.
Thank you.
Ashish, on the Citi side, right, longtime practitioner, accepting and delivering ISO to thousands of customers globally, driven by a first one or two customer that said, we're ready for SEPA, are you? What was the business case back in 2008, 2004?
I mean, first of all, Citi always claims that we are a technology company with banking license. So that kind of summarizes. I mean, we are for innovation, but we always remember and tell ourselves that innovation does not happen in isolation. So from that perspective, you always need pilot clients. You always need support to build the ecosystem. Fortunately enough, we have 2 clients. Actually, Mach was our first client to go live using ISO XML messages, and that too in Mexico and Panama being the first two countries. The first transactions, maybe 500 transactions, that was it. But Merck came to us. They were going from multi-ERP systems to one standard SAP instance. They wanted to have the centralization process completed. They wanted to go with one global standard. So Merck came to us and they said, we don't want any other file formats. We want ISO XML to be offered to us, and let's work together. So Merck was our first pilot client. After Merck, GE, again, all these are global clients. GE came to us and they said, we want to adopt a single global format. In their RFP, they had written, we are GE, we want one global format, we want Swift. If you have ISO XML, then only apply to the RFP, otherwise, go away. So that was our other perfect business case, where two multinationals, they're knocking on our door, and they want to work with us. So I strongly believe any new initiative, what we launch, unless you have pilot clients, and we have some strict pilot to go live criteria. I mean, we need certain regions to have certain number of clients before we declare that that solution is a production live. Otherwise, we talk about, it's still in a pilot phase. So we have stringent guidelines how our clients or corporates, they go live. And to us, I would say those were the perfect business cases to begin with.
Okay. So I know how Citi works, right?
Yeah.
And the business case was we're going to win Merck and we're going to win GE.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty opportunistic,
Right.
But now you're all over the world with
Mhm.
ISO, so you must have seen additional benefits beyond just winning Merck and GE over time.
Well, the benefits, even though you can talk about from corporate side or bank side, we want to, so what is at a higher level from bank's perspective? Enhance client experience. I mean, that's the bottom line for anyone. So if the clients can standardize instead of, the segregation or fragmented market of different payment types, different messages, different, statements that go out, if they can standardize on certain offerings, and ISO XML fits in perfectly, and that even proves in our overall adoption level, with 70% of our market or payment messages which are on ISO XML, that kind of speaks for itself. Once you have those levels, then you can build certain standards, you can build implementation process to onboard a client, certain success criteria, how you can move forward. Apart from the ISO XML benefits like the remittance details and whatnot, the clients also want some sort of interoperability. So if one bank, Citibank is offering it, now Bank of Montreal is offering it, we have several other banks worldwide, they are all using the same format. And again, let's face it, the country and format rules, that kind of are different for every bank. So from client's perspective or from corporate's perspective, they usually don't bank with, they have multi-bank strategy. So that's where what they do is, let's say, all the wires, they will give that business to Citi. All the ACH and check payment business, it might go to Bank of America. So that has been the trend in the market as well. So when we see certain clients, they are coming to us, for them to develop ISO XML standards and messages in that format, it's fairly simple. It uses the UTF-8 technology. So as a developer, it's kind of easier to see what the message looks like. And I mean, the market is available. The market is there. I mean, I always talk about Apple. Apple built, the overall market as far as the ecosystem is concerned. They not only launched their products, but they had development teams. They had other groups build those apps. And from enrichment perspective, Apple had more than, 3 million apps which was available. So that's how the ISO XML industry is. There are, if you walk upstairs, there are tons of booths, and they all offer, solutions. Even from clients' perspective, they don't have to code. There is integration model available, reconciliation, certain add-on products. So for a treasurer, when he or she is looking for making ERP payments or treasury payments, how do they reconcile their ledgers back? If they have liquid cash available, are there any liquidity products available? So the market is shifting more into building support around ISO.
Yep. Okay. So, Clint, I'm going to go a little off script here. I know I sent you these questions in advance, gave you all the opportunity in the world. I'm going to blindside you right now.
Absolutely.
All right? Okay. So, she's made a pretty good case here for global companies driving for ISO so they'd have a single standard that they could deal with the entire world in, right? Now, I happen to know that BMO is working with a Canadian-only company that's pushing ISO very hard, right? So, from your experience, like, why would a customer push ISO if it's not, to reach every country in the world in a single standard?
Well, I think it goes along with the ISO adoption evolution, I think, which has been every region that's adopted ISO adopts ISO domestically first.
Right.
So clean up in-house, ISO capable, and then it's interoperable. So Canada is not doing anything different than what's been done in SEPA and everywhere else in the world that has moved with ISO. So for the Canadian market segment, right now you have customers that they're looking at, it's time to re-platform. They're looking for efficiencies. They want to reduce their costs. So ISO gives them that benefit. So although it's not mature in Canada yet, they're future-proofing their business now. So they can build to ISO, be prepared for ISO. So they're not being pushed by a tidal wave of ISO. They're leading it. So they're riding the wave. They're getting themselves ready. And then the one customer is a domestic Canadian, and then, like I said, we have the three, and one of them is an international, and it's the same experience Ashish has mentioned. They're using ISO everywhere else. When they came to Canada, they said, look, EDI is nice, we're kind of tired of it though, so we're using ISO everywhere else. We want you to take ISO as well. So it's just letting customers choose the format. Like one of the things I've definitely marked down in my notes on the ISO journey we've had is that we have to simplify what ISO really is, and that it's a message format. So there's data, it's payment, it's all that, but it really is simple. It's not this. There's a big mystique about ISO and what it will do, and it's not a magic wand. It's not going to fix everything. People have to understand that this is a message format, and we need to utilize it as a tool. So. Other than creating an ISO implementation guide and providing it to customers that can use it to send me payment initiation missions, the benefit, the value proposition to the customers is that to also be able to use ISO internally to give them what they want. If they don't want ISO, but they want the benefit of ISOs, we can use all the rich data that goes with it to give them what they want. So SAP, any other ERP platforms, if they want to move to ISO, absolutely they can, or they can just get ready for ISO now and use existing or other internal proprietary formats or IDOC, something like that.
Okay. So one more question along these lines. I mean, on the global customer perspective, the advantage to the global customer is that he's got one format that he can deal with the world in.
Absolutely.
Both for payment origination and for inbound statements.
Correct.
And if he's global, that makes life a little bit easier, although there's this issue of rules and requirements varying country by country and jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
Right.
Right. But what other benefits would you say, your ability now to provide ISO on a global basis really provides your customers, and I'm going to ask you the same?
Well, the benefits from our side, we have lesser number of formats to maintain, because in any kind of file type that we offer, we have to upkeep, all the changes, the regulatory changes and whatnot. By reducing number of maps or reducing number of, the footprint, certainly it helps us in a big way. Time to market, it's a very, useful phenomenon, what we always use. We can have revenue realization from our perspective in the quickest way. We have seen implementation timelines go down and are fairly straightforward and easy. We have a robust mechanism to have the country and format rules available for all 130 plus countries where we bank and we offer our services. So we have regional and global kind of mechanism to support our clients. So the regional teams are kind of working for accounts in that area or that region, and then the implementation process shifts from region to region. And again, when we develop these details, ISO and as a participant of the CGI process as well, we also make sure, and we discuss those details in those CGI related meetings, that what are our clients looking for? When a certain regulatory change happens, how do we upkeep with those changes? So lesser formats is definitely something that's desirable from our side and helps us. At the same time, as Clint mentioned, clients are also looking for that, hey, do you support ISO XML for this country? If yes, then we want to give you business. So it's a combination of both for our internal systems. But again, in spite of doing that, we still want to make sure, we have very strict regulatory guidelines that we have to follow. For example, the AML, KYC, all those details. We still have the client or the messages still have to go through all of those details. So from security perspective, I don't think there are any challenges as far as the ISO standard is concerned. And I think it's an overall win-win proposition for both clients as well as Citi as well.
What about the early adopters in Canada? What benefits are they looking to achieve? Are they achieving them?
It's, once again, simplification. I think what ISO offers, even without it being at a point to exchange interbanks in Canada, is a journey that both the banks and the customers are all kind of going on, which is the simplification of payments. So Charlie might throw something at me, but I've argued, in the CPA ISO adoption, you have LVTS, you have AFT, and you have EDI, and they're now all using an ISO 20022 file format. Why do we make customers think about what kind of a payment they're making? It's a payment. Why do you have to know what it's an AFT payment? Why do you have to know it's an EDI payment? So with ISO, I convert, Clint Whitware's ideal utopia. I see, Canada being high value payments and low value, and that's it. And with customers sending you a message, we can either follow the instructions that they want it done in a certain manner, they want it as a high value, or they want it as a low value. Obviously, there'd be criteria for it, but also give them the benefit if they do want to designate that, sure, execute by their instruction, do what they want, or have them send us the file, and based on the criteria of the payment details, have the bank make that decision for them and give them the best solution for the lowest price point. So don't make people think about what a payment is. Just execute the payment. And having one common standard across the payment streams in Canada really makes this a very simple process. So you don't have to make customers think about, what am I doing? Like, I need an AFT payment. No, you don't. You need to make a payment. It's a payroll. You're paying your company. You're paying your employees. That's a payroll. Do you care if it was done by EDI, AFT, or wire? From a cost point, absolutely. But why do we need to have all three? I think we can simplify the Canadian payment infrastructures. The new technologies that are available can only help increase the efficiencies. So ISO can be the standard message and make it the ideal of payments a payment's a payment. Just get it done. Make the payment, execute it, and give me the best value for it. So that's what I see ISO as being a great.
We're all looking for that ideal, Clint's utopia. Hopefully we see it soon. Let's ask the audience, what are you guys looking for in terms of benefits to adopting an ISO 20022 program, either as a bank practitioner or as a corporate practitioner? Do you fall into meet customer demand? Are you looking for more enrichment of data, future-proofing your payments infrastructure the way the early adopters in Canada are? So what's the audience think? Well, I can tell who the banks are because this is a customer demand-driven situation, it seems, to a very large extent. And the future-proofing, that's no big surprise. nobody's jumped on the reduced IT costs yet. Is the general consensus in the audience and with you guys, was that a primary benefit, or was that even a benefit at all in terms of IT costs to deliver ISO? I'll start with you, Clint.
I think in a long-term plan and goal, yeah, absolutely, it's reduced IT costs. But I think there's definitely an initial spend to get there.
Okay.
So we're looking at obviously the efficiencies we can get of ISO using one single message format. Reduction of our payment environment to have less systems, outsourced to people that can be more competent on doing things that maybe we've got a legacy system. Something we can outsource to technology providers who do this thing better, faster, and cheaper for us. So yeah, for reduced IT costs, I do see that as being a benefit. I think that's something that's a long-term goal versus an immediate. So
Yep.
It's not usually the first thing that comes out of it.
So, long-term goal. You
Right.
guys are long-term practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard you mention earlier about, the simplification of the whole kind of regulatory requirement, compliance,
Right.
format, maintenance. Do you think Citi has seen a dollar benefit in the IT costs for the ubiquitous adoption of ISO?
I would definitely say so. To give you an example, I mean, we have an array of legacy systems, EDI formats. Some formats we have to still maintain it because our clients are on it. So, IFX XML used to be around in the market, and we built a legacy platform on that one. But as more and more clients are moving to standard formats, so ISO XML, it also helps us to kind of sunset those legacy applications. So it's not only, ultimately it saves us money on the servers, the maintenance, and upkeeping, with the formats and so far and so forth. IFX XML used to be a great message, but there was no ecosystem around it. So that initiative kind of died down. And we have so many formats like that. Even from SAP perspective, people talk about IDOC, right? But there are 60 different types of IDOCs, what clients can generate, or SAP offers. So rather than getting in that jungle of different messages, standardization is certainly, and harmonization, because all the banks, all the FIs, they offer ISO XML message. They meet regularly. They talk about how the fields are. From Citibank perspective, we have certainly seen the initial investment was higher, no doubt about it. But over a period of time, I think from the IT expenditure perspective, certainly we have seen benefits. Yes.
Okay. Good. We're going to move on to a different category of subject here, and this is really around the challenges of adoption that you faced, or were expecting and then actually faced as you adopted ISO. Let's start with the city, right?
Sure.
So 12 years ago, these two large corporates came to you and said, you better do this or else.
8 years ago.
Oh, sorry, 8 years ago. So Merck and GE, do it or else. What were the challenges you guys were anticipating?
Well, challenge is how do you build a global implementation process? Everyone talks about, oh, as and when things will come along your way, we will build about. But that's where, our technology company with banking license comes into picture. Things are very structured at Citi, and I'm very happy and proud to say that. We build robust processes. We build our pilot initiative with implementation guidelines, with readiness process, so far and so forth. So how do we build that giant global implementation process? That was a big challenge initially. How do we support the legacy systems? I touched base on that aspect as well. Because you still have the EDI facts, you still have BAI files. Certain regions, North America is big on BAI, and so far and so forth. So we have to have the regional support and those, payment types, we should keep them alive and active and available. So that was another challenge. And of course, another big challenge, and I want to give the solution also, how we overcame the clients, the overall repair rate, the overall errors in the message types. I know we have Swift here, and I'm a big advocate of my standards, what Swift offers. And again, I'm talking only from cash management perspective, all the cash management messages. I mean, within our bank, we have securities and other groups who are also using my standards. But that's one tool which has helped us tremendously. For example, if you look at your implementation guide timeline, you have the account opening process. You go through the KYC and other details. Then you have the content validation and format validation. And then you have production verification. So these three things happened in silos. With the introduction of my standards, how many of you have heard my standards? Swift my standards. All right. So with the usage of my standards, and I know Bill from Canada Payments also joined in one of the sessions what we had in New York last year. So with use of my standards, what they do is it's a test harness offered by Swift as a cloud-based solution. So the FI, or in our case Citibank, would have their business rules, the country and format validations available. So for example, let's say you want to make your AFT payment in Canada. So the AFT payment rule, what Citibank is looking for, accepting the client's payment, all the required tags and the business logic would be available in Swift My Standards. So the client can test against those specifications, because in the old way, what used to happen, the client would create a file as per our specification shared via Excel or other formats, and then there would be a manual back and forth. The client would send us a file, the implementation team will look at the file, oh, there is this field missing. So there was a lot of manual process built around. And as I mentioned, all of these activities, you can do it while the account opening process is taking place. So we have certain case studies, what we did, and the implementation is further reduced by up to 50% faster by using Swift My Standards. The client can have the file verified, they go through all the details, although we don't claim that file tested with my standards would be 100% accurate. We kind of specify about 80%, because the final 20% still depends on the downstream product processor and the acknowledgements what come back. But overall, I mean, that's something we highly support and advocate. To give you perspective, we have about 1,500 country and format rules stored in my standards, and that's about more than 10% among all the 90 plus FIs who have used their, who have published their guidelines with my standards.
So there's a challenge and a solution all rolled into one. The challenge is that since ISO is a fairly robust data format with a lot of content,
Right?
it can be a challenge for a customer to get their data into the appropriate format.
Correct.
And comply with the various country and country-specific rules.
Right.
And to help them do that, you've got my standards out
Absolutely.
there.
And again, now my standards is also like, if I'm a global client, I use different FIs or banks. The client knocks on our door and say, hey, Citibank has it. So they will go to Bank of Montreal and they will ask Clint, if I want to go live in your markets, where is your footprint on my standards? So,
So Clint, where's your footprint on my standards?
It's right here. Yeah, no, we actually are talking with the product management team at My Standards. So yeah, when we're ready to roll out the official platform, we will have our ISO implementation guidelines published as well. So
Okay.
it is. I can only echo what Ashish said. It is a great tool, and it really does enhance the client experience for them to be able to see and actually run their data against the files in a real-time environment without waiting for the processes of the banks of doing the implementation. So it lets them get ahead of the curve and speed up the implementations.
Let me ask you, as a relatively, still in the throes of early adoption here, what unexpected challenges did you see as you adopted ISO?
I guess really it was the whole issue around the standardization of the standardized format. So, you know, how many flavors of vanilla are there, right? The ISO formats, when we were trying to work with, you know, we have 3 customers, and the first 2 basically, yes, they were ISO paid messages, but no, they were not very similar. So one of the big challenges is to make sure, and that's, you know, a lesson learned, make sure you publish your standards ahead of time so that the customers know what they are and expect and can actually benefit from it. So we'll have our standards published. So it really is to just get to the overall concept of being able to identify. There always are going to be nuances because of the way ISO is built. But being able to have a 95% of your file standardized for customers to say, yeah, it looks the same and it works the same, dealing with the 5% of the small things to change isn't that hard to do, and that's something we can do quickly. So I think that was the biggest challenge, I think, for us.
Let's ask the audience, what do you guys think the biggest challenge is going to be as you head down this journey of adoption?
Sure, Chaughule.
The biggest challenge is this is still a niche product for us, right? I mean, we're still running, I work for CIBC, so we have clients, we offer ISO 2022 for customers, primarily for EFT, ACH, and wire. We do it separately, we do integrated payments. So the biggest challenge with the clients is basically versioning is a big issue. And you talk about reduced cost, but it's a very long time. It's an economies of scale, right? You have a handful of clients, but you spend in very millions of dollars, launching this, implementing it. You're not going to recover the cost. There's never a business case that it's yet. So unless you go down market, the smaller business, individual, business, smaller business, send a size of payment. But the challenge is, like I do onboarding for clients, the first thing, the versioning is an issue. Second of all, I mean, they're used to EFT, EDI, like, I can go into, field by field level, like file creation.
Yeah.
Who manages, like in EFT, you have FCN numbers, right? ISO, we have challenges with, okay, how do I manage this? And ACH, there's no FCN. How do you, like those kind of little things come about, and it takes a long time to iron those out. Sometimes onboarding takes about 7 months.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with Shaw.
Yeah, and it's onboarding for customers, especially in the early adoption, but I also heard from both parties here that actually achieving an internal return on adoption of ISO is a long-term project. It's not a 3-year turnaround on capitalization. It's more like an 8-year turnaround on capitalization. So, and I see the audience tends to agree, with 71% thinking that the technology investments and the system resources that it would take to make ISO endemic in their infrastructure is going to be the biggest challenge of adoption. So we're getting close on time. And I've got another set of questions I was going to ask the panelists, but we've kind of hit them about, how does it impact your internal systems? Did you gain any internal efficiencies? I heard a yes over here. What about your customers? Are they seeing efficiencies? I heard a yes over here. So the last question for the audience is really, where do you think you're going to get the most benefit out of an adoption of ISO? So let's see what the audience says, and we'll wrap this session up. So I see an echo of an earlier comment by Clint where, there is the 101, but what clients are really looking for is the KMT, right? The rich statement data coming back.
I'm going to add one very interesting use case I've come across. Swift had published it. It's Microsoft, published their adoption of ISO, and it was a very interesting approach. That really does reflect on a lot of this. And what they basically did is they did not look at ISO from payment perspective at all. They completely went with cash management. So first they went to every bank in the world that they dealt with and said, we will only get our account information in SWIFT format. So they got all the banks sending their account information in SWIFT format. Once they had that, then they moved on and said, okay, we don't want SWIFT format anymore. Now we want the ISO KMT messages. And once they had that fully implemented, what it gave them was a very powerful representation and understanding of their cash positions globally. They knew how much money they had at every bank, at every country that they dealt with. And from there, they then built out their concept of account receivables and account payables to do the cash management for payment initiations, for payment receivables, and also for their investment decisions. I'm getting a flashing red light.
Yep, so that's a nice case study to close on.
No, but I have one thing I wanted
Go.
to add. It's not as difficult as you think. Lot of companies, I mean, Citibank's perspective, we have certain niche products that we offer, which will extract payments directly from Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle systems or SAP. So there are tons of tools and product sets available, which most of our global clients are using, and that's something, I guess next year's Payments Panorama, we'll talk about those details.
We certainly will. We thank you for participating, and we wish you the best of luck on your ISO journey. Thanks.
Thank you.